Hi, I'm Graham from Match Medics, and welcome to our podcast, Doctor Diaries, Adventures to Ireland, where each week we have a doctor come on to tell us their own personal story about relocating to Ireland. Thank you, Jacob, for joining us on this morning's episode of Doctor Diaries, Adventures to Ireland. Thank you for taking the trip up from Galway to join us this morning to talk about your journey. So tell us a little bit about you, and then we can delve into where your journey to Ireland began.
Sure. Thanks for having me, by the way. So I guess in short, I came from Texas to Europe. I could go way back, but I'll start there.
Yeah.
I came from Texas to Europe about 4 years ago. I did an Army contract with U.S. Army and went to Germany. So From Germany, I finished that contract, and I was looking at how can I stay in Europe and what countries are my favorite. And so Ireland was on my radar, and I ended up here, luckily.
Amazing. And what motivated, if we can go back to America, what motivated your first thought of, looking overseas and looking for something new?
Sure. It's always been a fantasy for me and my husband both to live. We've always lived in Texas, both of us. So we'd always traveled. We loved traveling. So we've always fantasized. I think many people do when you go to a new place that you love and you're like, what would life be like here,
Yeah.
So we always had that fantasy and always loved traveling, experiencing other cultures. I'd been to Ireland about 3 times prior. 3 different trips.
Okay.
Well, I guess you could count 4, but it was just in Dublin for like a day. That doesn't count. 3 proper trips to Ireland. So it was always on my radar, and then Spain. But yeah, it was that, along with also just a desire to separate a bit from the States, not just for personal lived experience and to see what it's to fulfill that fantasy of living overseas, but also a desire to kind of distance myself right now from the States for different personal reasons, political, social.
Sure.
So.
And look, that's a growing sentiment, and we mentioned previously there's a growing level of interest in Ireland from US-based physicians for a variety of reasons, and some that you certainly alluded to now, which is why we're quite excited to just hear about your American Irish story. So tell us about where you are right now. You're currently working as a consultant psychiatrist in Galway. Tell us about the service that you're working with there.
Yeah. So I applied. There were 2 jobs. There was 3. One Cork, and then Kilkenny and Galway. And then I got interviews. The Cork one was filled, so I got interviews with Kilkenny and Galway, and did the full interview on both. And for various reasons, myself and my spouse, we chose Galway, and it's been great so far. So now I'm working with the HSC. I guess in Ireland they say HSC. You're getting used to the H. I work for HSC West Northwest as a consultant. It's a relatively new post. It's liaison.
Okay.
So for child adolescent mental health services. So I guess my proper title is a CAMS consultant liaison.
Sure.
So I kind of work the acute set. I'm responsible for kind of when patients are out in the field and they present to the ER or an inpatient unit, like a PEDS ward. So I'm responsible for that at mostly the University Galway Hospital. That's where I'm mostly centered. But I also am responsible for some hospitals in Mayo, and then also the Portiuncula Hospital.
Yeah.
So that one as well. So that one's a bit out. So yeah, I have a pretty large footprint, but I have a big team too. We have 2 advanced nurse practitioners right now, and going to hire more nurses as well for my team.
Is your background in liaison and child and adolescent psychiatry, or where does that stem from?
So in the U.S., you go through medical school, it's 4 years, and then you go through residency. Well, this is after undergrad. Undergrad, then medical school for generally 4 years, then residency. Adult psych is 4 years, but I combine mine with adult and then child. In America, you have to go through adult psychiatry and residency before you can subspecialize in child.
Okay.
So in America, I'm boarded. I have a specialty in adult psychiatry and then child.
Okay.
So but here in Ireland, it's a bit different. You can kind of go one or the other. So that was confusing for me when I signed up. They're like, what are you here to do? And I'm like, well, adult or child. So they're like,
okay,
which one is it?
Yeah.
But here I'm functioning as child psychiatry. In the States, all child psychiatrists do some liaison as part of the training.
Okay.
So I've actually never had a liaison job full time. I always did a little of it in other jobs, if that makes sense. And in training, I was full-time liaison for just a few months.
Okay.
So now...
it's relatively new territory then.
It is. It's relatively new, especially in a new country and a new healthcare system.
Yeah.
So it's a bit, it was uncomfortable at first, but it's feeling better every day.
Great. And how would you compare your Irish experience so far with your time in Germany?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a good question. I think about it a lot. In Germany, it was unique because I was working a military healthcare system on an American base, but living off post in the German economy. Okay. So I kind of had a hybrid German-American experience there with a unique, I'd never done active duty medicine, so that has its own set of skills and new learning.
Okay.
And then the culture is really different. Like Germans, and Germany and Ireland feel so different culturally. In what
way?
I was really shocked. I got used to kind of in Germany there's a lot of stoicism initially, I guess you could call it that, but it's it's not particularly warm initially, interpersonally.
Sure.
Like people, I kind of come from Texas where it leans a little more towards Ireland, like you kind of nod at strangers and they kind of disconnect until it's time to connect,
Okay.
And in Ireland, it was the opposite. Coming from Germany to Ireland, it was a stark difference because suddenly I'm passing everybody and they're saying, how are you?
Yeah.
Or how are you? And I initially started to answer them because I was like, oh, they're asking me how I'm doing. I didn't realize it was a greeting, like a hello.
Yeah.
So yeah, the biggest difference I think was that cultural one, just kind of getting used to the way we interact with strangers, on that level.
Okay.
So that was probably the biggest contrast.
Sure. And for you and for many Americans perhaps who are listening to this, going back a little bit, the registration process with the Irish Medical Council can be quite challenging to navigate. How did you find that?
That was difficult, to be honest. It took over a year of back and forth communications with the IMC, the Irish Medical Council. Initially I started, I don't know if it was my fault or whose, but I started doing the wrong specialist packet, the application packet.
Okay.
Apparently it was outdated or it didn't apply. It ended up not applying to me.
Okay.
It might have had to do with me being adult and child and maybe going down the adult path on accident.
Sure.
When really I needed to apply for a child psychiatry specialty.
Okay.
So it might have had to do with that. But I finally got on course with the correct packet, which was the E, the letter E packet.
Category E.
Category E. And then I did all that. But there's a lot of back and forth because it's not one-to-one. There's different names for things here, like when they say audits and things like that, and they log different patient interactions here differently. The whole training structure is a bit different. So there's not exactly comparisons, an equivalent. You have to get the best fit when you look at the American training. So there was a lot of hey, I don't exactly have this, or hey, what does this mean? There was a lot of back and forth. And then my initial application, when I submitted it through, it was over 107 pages of PDF between their forms, the IMC's forms, and my forms. It was a huge packet. And then that was initially rejected. I was denied.
Okay.
It's initially reviewed by one psychiatrist, by one consultant, and he rejected it, and then gave various reasons, which were kind of overwhelming. I was thinking, man, I'm not qualified at all, according to his report.
Okay.
But then the IMC, they have a great process where if it is rejected, it goes automatically into a panel for review. You don't even have to ask for it.
Okay.
So it will be reviewed. The rejections are then reviewed by a panel of, I think, 4 or 5 consultants.
Okay.
And a team. So I was accepted during that panel.
Right. Okay.
So
did they require additional documentation for that?
They did. They wanted. They did want some more. They wanted, some more on the audits, which I had to contact my programs back in the States, and get very old. They had to kind of dig in the catacombs because my training was back in 2009 through 2014.
Okay.
So they had to kind of dig around and look for, hey, what did this attending site? We call senior doctors attendings. They're like kind of lead consultants who train the registrars, or we called them
residents.
Residents, exactly. Yeah. So they had to dig through and kind of get reports from them to kind of say, hey, he can do this assessment, or yes, he did. He was supervised during ECT, electroconvulsive therapy.
Okay.
Things like that.
Sure.
That they kind of will automatically have if you're in training here in like Irish training, and then there we kind of had to make certain pieces fit.
Okay.
So
how did you stay motivated? How did you keep the Irish dream, if I can phrase it that way, alive during that pretty headachy process and 12 months painstakingly getting through that application?
Sure. It was difficult. I started to come up with contingencies, I won't lie, because I was thinking, well, this may not stick. It's also an expensive process too.
Sure.
It was over 5,000 euros to apply.
Okay.
So it's a not cheap for your time or your money. But I started looking at contingencies because I was thinking this might have not been the way to go. It might be more difficult than I had imagined. I didn't have any role models. I didn't have anybody that I could ask, like any other Americans that had done this. So I was forging a new path for myself, and I just still had hope. I don't know, I'm a pretty hopeful guy, so I still tried, and I had invested so much time and money anyways that I thought, let's see it till the very end. I want to hear an absolutely no,
Okay.
before I stop. So I kept going and then made it. But I did have contingencies. I was looking at Spain and starting to get my documents translated, all my trainings and certificates. I was getting them. I was also getting them translated into German because there were some possibilities of work on the German economy.
Okay.
But not as a full physician because my German is not that fluent yet.
Okay.
So that could have been an option. So I was looking at those options, but it was possible that I was going to have to look at another military contract, or I didn't want to go back to the States, so I was looking at how can I not go back there yet.
Okay.
And my whole family, the military moves your whole family, like car and house and spouse and dogs, so everything was already here.
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out how to stay.
Okay. And finally you came through and it was worthwhile, and as you say, I think you rightly phrased it, you are a bit of a trailblazer because there aren't that many American consultants here across a variety of specialties, but it is, as we mentioned at the beginning, it's a growing pathway for a lot of American physicians to look at the closest English-speaking country that they can practice in.
Sure.
And I think your experience, you probably tested along with yourself, tested the medical council too, to figure out, okay, there's a growing number of Americans here, we should probably identify where the comparisons are, and where we talked about sort of difference in language between residents and registrars and attendings and physicians.
Sure.
So I'd like to think, I say, calling you a bit of a trailblazer, Jacob, in that you might make the pathway for future American consultants that little bit easier now that some of the medical council team are a bit more informed on what the differences are, but that the experience does match up in the end once things do align.
Sure. It's I hope it was definitely a learning experience for me. I imagine it was a learning experience for IMC as well, since like you said, there's not a lot of Americans coming over. But like you said, more and more these days. And we're, regardless of, the socio-political climate, like we're international, the world's growing ever more connected, so it behooves everybody to, and healthcare's underserved in most places. So
Sure.
It behooves us all to learn how to work together better.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So tell us then, go back to your work here in Ireland. What does your day-to-day look like?
Sure. So that's one thing that I love, was the day-to-day, because I did clinic job in the military in Germany, which was very regimented, as you can imagine. You have a team meeting at like 7:40 in the morning and like talk shop, and then you see your first patient at 8, and it's very regimented. Every minute is parceled out. And so in this job, it's less structure.
Okay.
I even asked, like, when and where's the team meeting? And they're like, well, you just get your work done.
Okay.
So that was nice.
It's quite an adjustment.
It was
but you're
a good one.
Pleasant, okay,
A
yeah.
pleasant one, because it's more adult. I feel less micromanaged.
Okay.
So yeah, my day starts, instead of starting, at 7, the day starts more around 8 to 8:30. I start seeing my first patients around 9 to 9:30.
Okay.
We get like I'll check in with calls at like 8:30. I have my advanced nurse practitioner who's amazing, who's been doing this job as on her own as the liaison. She was checking in with the outpatient CAMS consultants.
Okay.
That's who she was staffing her patients with, but she was doing it all alone as the liaison for all of Galway, West Northwest, or all
Right.
HSC West Northwest. So she was doing that all alone. So I check in with her now. So she and I are working great together. She's a champ. I check in with her because she'll get calls. People are used to calling her.
Okay.
Like when I say people, I mean like ERs and other registrars and stuff that took patients over the night, and so they're sitting in an ER on a ward needing a consult
Okay.
from a CAMS liaison.
Okay.
So we check in with all our calls, and then we kind of decide how, between the two of us, how we'll divide the patients out. If we're overwhelmed, we'll divide and conquer. So she'll go see someone, and then I'll go see someone, and she'll staff them with me, and I'll see them if I need to, that sort of thing. I'll see them briefly and write my little note. But yeah, sometimes if it's one patient, I'll tell her, hey, work on that project. There's little projects and emails and things, like do your admin and I'll go see this patient. And sometimes she'll do the same. Like if we're not overwhelmed, she'll go see, if it's her turn to go solo, she'll like go out to Portugal or somewhere.
Okay.
And see the patient while I catch up on admin. So it's kind of loose and unstructured, but it's nice. But it, different things can strike. Like this week we had a psychotic male, 17, who needed an admit. Obviously he was very aggressive and psychotic, and according to the Mental Health Act 2001 in Ireland, we have certain protocols to follow. I ended up having to go to court to commit him.
Okay.
So that was, I've done court before in the States as part of my training and job, but I'd never done it in Ireland. But it was pretty similar. It was, you kind of have to know the same data to present to the judge in the court system. So I ended up having to kind of take time out of the patient care day to go to court. So that was interesting.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned that, dynamic duo that you have there, and it's a growing importance to have a strong working relationship in a multidisciplinary team. Was that something you were used to in the States, or?
It was. I especially the military, we had a big team, but it's understaffed, so everyone was pretty busy. It's hard to actually link up and utilize the team because everyone always has their doors closed with patients,
Okay, yeah.
So it's kind of tricky. So here, people feel a bit more available. The teams, I've always worked with social workers and psychologists and other psychiatrists of varying specialties. Probably the least amount of teamwork I had was when I did telehealth, and I worked kind of solo.
Okay.
But it's a gentler population, it's lower risk, outpatient. I can always escalate it and refer out if I need to, but it was more isolated. But my military job and here, definitely, and in training, definitely big teams.
Okay.
So
that's quite a change, and as you said, probably for the better, that it's a little bit more relaxed and you have a bit more autonomy over your time and the tasks the two of you do.
Yes, the autonomy is nice because it ends up being counterproductive when someone who's not sitting in, I'm in the driver's seat and I know what needs to be done for the day, and then sometimes you'll have somebody with good intentions, and I mean in all healthcare systems, you'll have somebody that's with good intentions, but maybe they're, they aren't another physician. They're seeing it through a different lens, a different administrative lens, or maybe they're responsible for collecting payment or something, and they have different motives, and sometimes they're taking too much control over your workflow that day.
Okay.
And I'm seeing less of that here in Ireland. I'm freer to do my job.
Okay.
To actually take care of someone's health.
Sure.
So there's not as much, at least currently, maybe I haven't been here too long, but there's not as much as administrative hurdles if that makes sense.
Okay.
In the States, it was a lot of insurance-driven, like payer-driven protocols.
Okay.
That would determine your whole workflow.
And that must be quite a relief not to even have to factor that into your daily work.
It was interesting, too, because after my first patient, very first one with I had my nurse practitioner with me kind of showing me the system, the new system we're in. And at the very beginning, I was like, okay, how are we going to code this? She said, excuse me? I said, well, what are we going to build? Like, what's the time we're billing for? What's the code? What's the system we're going to use to bill? Like, because there's certain things you need to know before you even go in and see the patient, how much time you're going to take, and what all, in order to bill a certain code in the States, you have to have certain data points available that you have to show and exhibit in your report, or they won't get payment, or you could be audited and then fined yourself for it. And so she told me, like, no, like, we just have to just do whatever you think we need to do to take care of the patient and document whatever you think we need to. So there was an amazing amount of freedom there.
Yeah.
But it did shock me for a bit, because I'm used to just the kind of cookie cutter way that I'd done things mostly per insurance protocols in the States. So I didn't have that here. So it was mostly a relief.
Yeah. And being able to give care to the people that needed it most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It freed up a lot more time, which was very, very nice.
So are you finding you're giving more time to your patients than perhaps you're allowed to previously?
I think so. Yeah. Actually, I know so. There's more time I'm giving to colleagues, too, as well. At least in this current job, there's a lot more communications done, like among parties. Like, it's interesting, too, because it would usually be a social worker's job, but sometimes we didn't have that at certain jobs. But the job would be, after I see the patient, who's going to field my report to the parties that need to know, like the GP, or the primary care team taking care of them, And then here, it's my job, so there's a little more administrative duty there for me, but it's good. It's good care, because it's now I get to report personally to the nurse or to the primary care team. I get to write a quick letter to the GP summarizing the treatment, things like that. And there's more time for it, So that's been nice.
Yeah. And you mentioned sort of differences in systems and perhaps surprises that might come across some Americans who move over here, and that is we're still quite paper heavy, and the idea of an electronic patient record is a thing of dreams for a lot of public hospitals. How did you find that transition?
That one's tough, because I haven't done paper since 2009.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Every job I've had has been electronic after that. So, and my handwriting's crap. So that's been actually one of the hardest parts. So this new job is getting used to using my chicken scratch again, and making it legible enough. I feel sorry for anyone having to read my handwriting. Apologies to all my colleagues. But that's actually been really tough, is the handwriting piece, just because I don't know, I should have had occupational therapy as a child. Maybe I should still have it now. That's been probably challenging.
There's that. So speaking of the differences between the two systems that pose as a challenge, but if someone was to know this ahead of time, might be quite useful. So the insurance piece is no longer a concern or part of the job. Obviously, electronic, medical records. What other thing do you think stands out as the third biggest difference between the two systems, whether it's difference in patients or different ways of working?
Yeah. Right now I can't get off the handwriting, but like everything's paper and handwritten. The flow's the same. There's still in the chart, you open it and there's the phase sheet with all their demographics. Like, it's very familiar territory. But I guess I still can't get over hunting down the charts again and trying to find it, trying to find space to write and a desk to write at. And, that's been probably the most challenging. The communications are probably the next biggest adaptation, because I would usually just defer all that to a social worker or another admin staff, who would then circle back around to me and be like, we can't submit this. You don't have X, Y, and Z on the document. It was a lot of checking the box, Do you know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah.
And then here, there's not that piece
Okay.
as much. There's nobody kind of looking over my shoulder saying, like, that's a crap note. Like, we aren't going to get paid for that. Or, you know.
Sure.
It's more a functional question, like a nurse or a GP saying, like, hey, what's the diagnosis? Like, did you leave the diagnosis out? Or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which hopefully we won't do, but it seems more functional, the questions. They're less oriented towards getting payment or making sure we see the next patient quickly. It's more
Okay.
like, hey, what's going on with this patient? What do we do with them? What services can we connect them to? What do they need? What's their disposition? You know, prognosis, that kind of thing. And communicating it to the parties that need to know.
Okay.
Which is all, like I said, that's all great care.
Yeah.
But in the States, a lot of times that the docs don't have time for that.
Okay.
And it gets delegated, and whether or not it happens well once it's delegated is sometimes not as followed up on.
Okay.
In some systems, sure, but in many, I've seen it where that piece kind of falls. And so it ends up being fragmented care, right? You may get great care in one facility, but then you're reinventing the wheel at the next, and there's no communication between the parties, you know, so that's difficult. In other news, I'm learning how to use a scanner again. Because now I write and I have to go scan it and then email it. Yeah. But it feels good because there's time to do that.
Okay.
You know, in the States, I can't imagine doing all that because I would have to be seeing the next patient and then, you know, writing a heap. What ends up happening, to be quite honest, is the insurance requires so much to technically be a due payment that they end up steering it, so they'll add more and more and more requirements so that they can technically dodge having to pay.
Right. Okay.
So now doctors are wasting their time to satisfy insurance requirements.
Yeah.
So it's a wrestling match between insurance and doctors, and the patients just kind of like whether or not they get good care is like a, you know, second an afterthought.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I don't like that. That's
Sure.
one of my motivations for leaving that system.
Okay.
It's a bit too, like, I understand payment is needed, but when it's the driving force, that's sad.
Yeah.
You know, it ends up causing bad health care, first of all.
Okay.
But then it ends up driving doctors and patients insane, you know, the whole healthcare system.
Okay.
So,
So if anything, aside from upskilling in the old school technical sense of learning how to use a printer and a scanner again and practicing your handwriting, it's given you a lot more professional freedom. Would that be
Yes.
fair to say?
that's very fair. That's a great summary. Thank you.
Great. Amazing. Okay, well, look, let's, moving on, delve into life outside of work, life in Ireland. How have you found it so far? You know, living in Galway, which, you know, for anyone who doesn't know, is quite a student-focused city, and there's, you know, I see it as perhaps the culinary capital of Ireland, with a variety of different cuisines available. What's been your experience there so far?
Same, yeah. It's a very young place. It's got a lot of different technical colleges and Galway University, and it's lively, right? There's a lot of tourists as well. So and it's very. I was surprised to see how multicultural it is. There's a lot of different cultures there, from
Yeah.
like Pakistani to Brazilian, Italian, you know, Canadian. There's so many Portuguese. There's so many different
Any
internationals.
cross paths with any other Americans?
Americans,
Yeah.
not working there,
Okay.
but many tourists.
Plenty of tourists.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
many tourists. There's plenty of Americans there touring around, yeah, but I've not encountered any that live there yet.
Okay.
I mean, I've only been here like around less than 2 months, so
Okay.
I'm sure I'll cross paths eventually.
Sure. And you mentioned the dogs earlier on. They made the trip over. How are they settling into Irish life?
Yes, it was actually really easy. We took the ferry from Cherbourg, France.
Yeah.
We drove it from Germany to France, and then took
Okay.
the ferry from Cherbourg, France to Rosslare, Ireland.
Yeah.
So it was an overnight ferry. We had a dog-friendly room, so you just bring them in your car and then bring them from the car into your ferry room,
Okay.
and you just kind of hang out. It's like a mini cruise,
Yeah.
you know, and then you get out and get back in your car and drive. We drove from Rosslare to Galway.
That's
So it was
some
very,
journey from Berlin or from
Germany,
Yeah,
yeah.
Germany. Yeah.
it was, we went from Bavaria through the Black Forest, and then it was
Okay.
fun. It was
Yeah.
fun. But yeah, the interesting thing is the housing market here is difficult for those who don't know.
Sure.
Finding a house anywhere in Galway is difficult. There's just not a lot of them. There's not an abundance, and I'd say landlords hold the power when it comes to kind of determining the price and who gets to live in it or not. So there's a lot of applications that are unanswered, and especially if you have dogs.
Yeah.
So either the landlords here are not fond of them. So
Okay.
it was very hard to find a space that allows dogs. So that was very difficult.
So did you find another dog lover that was happy to take you in? Was that the
Yes, finally.
secret? Yeah.
Finally. I'm actually in an Airbnb, a long-term one right now.
Okay.
But the rent is around the same. It's on the high side, but it's around the same as a other rental anyway. So,
Okay.
it still feels just like a regular rental. But it's interesting because it's so scarce. If you land the contract for a house, they determine, like, I think it wasn't even like, oh, when can you move in? It was like, okay, you're going to move in next week. It's
Okay.
available now, so you'll move in next week. But I was still in Germany, so there were about like 3 weeks that I couldn't live in the house that we still had to. So, we drove straight to Galway just because we already had a space that we're paying for.
Yeah.
So we landed in it, and it was, it was fun. It was a fun process settling in.
Amazing. And I know you're still only fresh in the country, but have you done much traveling around yet in your downtime?
Locally, yes.
Yeah.
I'm
Is there
trying to-
anywhere you might recommend for a short trip away?
Anywhere along the Atlantic Way. That's what I've tried to stick towards, just because it's
Okay.
I want to go on the main path first before I forge my own. So I want to see what everyone's talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
So I did the Wild Atlantic Way just out to Connemara and then down to Clare.
Okay.
So I've only gone locally. Next I'll go up to Donegal, I think. So
Yeah.
I want to try that. But Connemara is beautiful, like just gorgeous scenery. I have not done the national park there, but it's next on my list. I want to actually go and like stay there for a weekend, I think.
Okay.
Because we had just done like a drive-through for a couple days, but we were mobile, and I want to go and like either get a cabin or camp or something. So,
Okay.
But the national park in Connemara, I've heard really brilliant things about. And then of course we drove down through Clare, and just driving there is like a wild. I don't know if you'll. I'm sure y'all have seen it.
Yeah, yeah.
But the scenery's wild. Like how it'll be like mountains that are all grass at the base, and then they look petrified at the top. All of a sudden there's like all the rocks at the top. It's just a magical looking landscape.
Okay.
And then we drove all the way up to the Cliffs of Moher.
Yeah.
And saw that. So yeah, I've just done local trips. I want to go back out to Connemara and do the national park in Calmore Abbey.
Okay.
Just because
Yeah.
it looks stunning in all the pictures. I want to see that. I don't
Yeah.
know. So yeah, I have a feeling that I'll be just driving around Ireland for my first few vacations.
Okay.
Just because there's too many places I want to like see, and not in the classic. Too many times in America we don't get so much vacation, so people come and they do like 1 day here, 1 to 2 days here. I want to take it slow
Sure.
and like soak it up. So
And that's the other big difference. You get decent annual leave here
Yes.
in comparison to the States.
yes, it was. I got 1 day off per month with my last job, so
Okay.
which you have to slowly. You don't get it all at once. You have to earn it. So
Okay.
every month you work there, you get 1 day, 8 hours.
Wow.
Not that good. Not that good. Granted, there was some sick leave too, but you're technically supposed to be sick to use that, and that wasn't abundant either.
Yeah.
So I didn't hardly have any leave. So I'm excited to finally have leave again.
Yeah, and you can properly plan a trip, a decent length of a trip.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
Amazing. And again, noting you've only been here for a short while, but has there been a moment where so far you thought, I'm proud I did that. I'm patting myself on the back to say, yeah, that was a bit of a feat, but well done me, or well done us, yourself and your partner.
Yeah. I mean, I just think every day that I wake up, I'm like, look where I'm at. Like, this is great. Like, life has definitely improving. And yes, there's uncertainties and things I'm learning, and there's stressful times, but overall, it's leaps and bounds. It feels leaps and bounds better. So just every day that I wake up and I like step outside and I walk the dogs along the Loch Italia, That's where we do our morning
Okay.
dog walk.
Okay.
And then the evening dog walks is we run them at Merlin Meadows. So,
Okay.
yeah. Anytime I'm doing just everyday life. And then I can kind of it's a 15 to 20 minute walk down to the center. So I'll go to work and then be done with work and then just come home and walk the dogs and we'll eat fabulous food in the center of Galway and just walk. It's fun being able to walk around again,
Yeah.
I don't have to drive everywhere.
Yeah.
The bus, when I'm riding the bus in the morning, I take the bus. It's right outside my house, and I jump on the bus, and it's 20 minutes from door to door from my door to the hospital. So that's
Okay.
not bad. A 20-minute,
Yeah.
and I get to people watch the whole time on the bus. It's fun. It's fun.
I'm sure no doubt you've come across a few characters on that commute at various times.
I'm sure
of the
I'm
day.
one of them too. I probably people are watching me too, so
It goes both ways.
it goes both ways.
Very good. Well, we're going to dive next into a bit more of an interactive piece. I'd asked you ahead of time to I know you're after chatting previously, you're a bit of a keen photographer, so it was a bit of a challenge to pick this one out, but I asked you to pick one picture that sort of summed up your Irish adventure so far.
Sure.
Do you have one in
do,
mind that
yes.
you're happy to share with us? And you
Let me
can
dig it out of the catacombs here.
tell us the story behind it.
It was very hard to dig up one, but I will show you one. I'll follow the order. Here's one.
Okay, right. Well, that's we'll be able to show in post, but that's an interesting. There's a cheerleader jump.
He's doing a
in the
jump.
field. Yeah, is that your partner? Yeah.
Yes, he was just feeling silly and he did a
Yeah.
jump. We had the dogs on long leads and we were out at at our first proper bog.
Okay.
Bogs, I've never been to any bog.
Yeah.
So what is this? A plains or a swamp or what? It's kind of both.
Yeah.
It's both. It's like a mountain and a plain and a swampland all at once.
Yeah.
And a sea. And it changes every footstep that you're on. So
Yeah.
to me, that captures Ireland for me because it's this freedom. The dogs could run around. It was vast and it was kind of fun and it was a little bit dangerous because there was one point where we went off the beaten path.
Okay.
That was not a good idea.
Yeah.
The beaten path's beaten for a reason because people survive it, So I went off to what looked like I was going up. So I was like, okay, surely it'll be less wet. I'm climbing up, I'm going up. And I was on mostly rocks. And then some grass here and there. And then I stepped, and all of a sudden I sank knee deep. And I'm not wearing gear.
Okay,
I was wearing
yeah.
tennis shoes.
Yeah.
And my dogs and husband and everybody's on level ground just looking at me. I'm like, well, okay. And so I took another step and then sunk waist deep. So now I'm stuck in these bogs. It ended up being hilarious.
Sounds it.
Yeah. So, made it out. Phone was fine. I'm fine. But it's an adventure. But to me, this summarizes Ireland because it was beautiful and it was vast. It was magical and a little bit risky. I guess.
I'd say, dare say, dangerous.
Some danger there.
Growing up as Irish, we would be told to steer clear of the bogs because of their unpredictability.
They were very
But
unpredictable.
you found that out the hard way, yeah.
Yeah. Thankfully with no injuries or losses, but I will be staying on the trail now.
Good life lesson to learn. The next piece we're going to jump into, unlike the bogs, is probably something you may have come across already, and plenty of Americans will ask, how much of the population speaks Irish, and should I be learning Irish before I come across? And that, as I'm sure you've already experienced, certainly isn't required. But there is definitely Irish littered throughout our everyday, and whether that be in place names or people's names or Irish phrases. So I know I'm putting you on the spot here because I'm not here long at all, but I thought I'd try and sort of test your Irish knowledge with a few pieces here. So this, as a hint, this is a person's name. How would you pronounce that?
It's hard. It'd probably be Ishin. I don't know.
It's close. Oisín.
Oisín. Okay.
Oisín, yeah. What about this place name?
Leash.
Very good. Okay, one from two, not bad. And then this, I have to admit, I don't use this phrase too often, but on different parts of the country, this phrase is used. How would you pronounce that, and what's your interpretation of that?
In Texas, we definitely say yolk, but I haven't heard that one yet. So I don't know if Irish would say yoke or yolk or
Yoke, yeah.
Would you say the L here? The yolk?
Yoke, no. So it's again a mysterious silent L.
Okay.
And probably more so, it's our Munster colleagues have suggested we include that piece. So perhaps it's more colloquial. So maybe Connachts, you haven't come across it as of yet. But yoke would be perhaps. Did you see that yoke on your people watching commutes?
Fella.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you can take that away, and I don't know whether or not you'd be comfortable sharing that with colleagues, or maybe your partner to say, did you see that yoke going down the road the other day?
That.
Yeah, so you can take them into your daily life. And I guess, closing off for any, whether they be American or other physicians listening across the world, what one last piece of advice would you give them if they were considering a move here to Ireland?
Yeah, I would say keep considering and turn it into action. You can consider your whole life and never act. So just, trust your gut. If your survey looks right, and there's a point where the consideration needs to turn into action. So just try it. It's been fruitful for me, and it's cheesy, but you'll live with regrets and things you haven't at least tried. So,
sure.
Yeah, just do it.
I love that. That's amazing. Thanks so much for coming on to share your story. And I know whether they're American or others, we'll definitely get some value from the piece you shared with us today. So thanks again for coming up to Dublin to speak with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.